I still remember the way Jason's voice cracked when he begged me to help cover rent. His eyes were wide, desperate, his hand gripping mine as if that would erase the sting of what he had done just weeks earlier. I leaned in close, my heart pounding in my chest, and whispered the words that shattered him. Family. Remember? The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match we had ever had. He froze, unable to answer, unable to fight back, because deep down he knew what I meant. He had stolen from me, excluded me, humiliated me, and now he wanted me to save him. But in that silence I saw my freedom. I turned, walked out of that apartment, and never looked back. They say you never forget the moment your heart truly breaks, not the small fractures that come with disappointments or arguments, but the clean, irreparable split that changes everything. Mine happened on a rainy Tuesday in April in our small Portland apartment that smelled of yesterday's coffee and the lavender candles I burned to mask the perpetual dampness. I was folding laundry when my phone pinged with a notification. Stephanie, my sister-in-law, had tagged Jason in photos on Instagram. Nothing unusual. There, she tagged him in everything from brunches to shopping hauls, but what I saw made the neatly folded t-shirt slip from my fingers. Jason, Barbara, Frank, and Stephanie, all grinning beneath palm trees, with turquoise water stretching behind them, lei necklaces around their necks, tropical drinks in hand. The perfect Hawaiian vacation. My Hawaiian vacation. My fingers trembled as I zoomed in. On each photo, there was Barbara, my mother-in-law, lounging on a beach chair, her signature disapproving smile replaced by genuine joy. Frank, stoic as always, but with a visible relaxation in his shoulders I'd never seen before. Stephanie, posing dramatically by a waterfall, the same waterfall I'd pinned to my dream board 2 years ago. And there was Jason, my husband, smiling with a lightness I hadn't seen in years. The caption, Turner Family Forever, Ohana Adventures, or Family First. No mention of me, not a single one. I scrolled through the photos again, searching for any indication that they'd even thought of me. 23 photos, all without me, all paid for with money I'd spent years saving. I don't know how long I stood there, phone in hand, laundry forgotten. Long enough for the sky to darken outside our living room window. Long enough for the candle to burn down to a puddle of wax. Long enough for my disbelief to harden into something much more solid. When I heard his key in the door, I was still standing in the same spot. "Hey, babe," Jason called out, shrugging off his rain jacket. His voice was casual, as if nothing had changed, as if he hadn't just betrayed me in the most fundamental way. "Sorry I'm late. The meeting ran over and then traffic was up." He stopped when he saw my face. Or maybe it was the phone I was holding out toward him, screen illuminated with Stephanie's posts. "Oh," he said, "just that." "Oh, when were you going to tell me?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm, too controlled for the storm raging inside me. Jason ran a hand through his damp hair, eyes darting around the apartment as if looking for an escape route. "Look, Lauren, it's not what you think." "Really? Because it looks like you took my honeymoon money. Money I saved for years and spent it on a trip to Hawaii with your parents and sister, without me. It wasn't like that." He stepped toward me and I stepped back. "Dad's health hasn't been great, and Mom was worried, and Steph just broke up with David. And what? They needed $22,000 of our money to feel better. My money, Jason. Money I saved working overtime for 3 years. He had the decency to look away then. Their family, Lauren." Something inside me went very still. And what am I? The silence stretched between us, growing thicker by the second. When Jason finally answered, his words came out practiced, as if he'd been rehearsing them. "It was a family trip, Lauren, only for family." The words hung in the air between us. Only for family. I was his wife. I had been for 2 years. But in that moment I realized I had never been family to the Turners. "I see," I said quietly. And I did. For the first time I truly saw everything clearly. "Babe, don't be dramatic," Jason said, his tone shifting to the patronizing one he used whenever I got too emotional about something. "We'll save up again. We'll go next year, just you and me." I looked at him standing there in our small living room, this man I had loved, supported, built dreams with, and wondered how I could have been so blind. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. He shrugged, the gesture so casual it burned. "A few months. Mom found a deal on flights back in January, and it seemed like the perfect timing with Dad's January, I repeated. When I was working double shifts to add the last few thousand to our honeymoon fund. Jason's eyes flashed with irritation. Look, I don't see why you're making this into such a big deal. They're my family, Lauren. You wouldn't understand. You don't have siblings. And your parents are... Don't! I cut him off, my voice hard. Don't you dare bring my parents into this. My father had passed away when I was 16. My mother lived in Arizona now, remarried and distant. Jason knew how much that hurt, how much I had longed to be part of a real family again. He looked away, but not before I caught the flash of contempt in his eyes. How had I missed that all these years? I'm going out, I said, grabbing my purse and jacket. Lauren, come on, let's talk about this like adults. Adults don't steal from each other, Jason. Adults don't exclude their partners from family. I spat the word out like it tasted bad. And right now I don't think I can look at you without screaming. I walked out into the Portland rain, no destination in mind. Just away. Away from the apartment. Away from the betrayal. Away from the realization that I had married a man who didn't consider me family. As I drove through the misty streets, wipers beating a rhythm against the windshield, memories flooded back. Barbara's tight smile when Jason had announced our engagement. Stephanie forgetting to include me in family photos. Frank's consistent silence whenever. Barbara made a cutting remark about my clothes, my job, my lack of proper family background. And Jason, always Jason, laughing it off, telling me I was being too sensitive, that it was just how they were. I ended up at Patty's apartment, soaking wet and hollow-eyed. She took one look at me standing in her doorway and pulled me inside without a word. Only after I'd changed into her sweatpants and oversized Portland State hoodie, with a mug of chamomile tea warming my hands, did I tell her everything. He said it was only for family, I finished, my voice barely a whisper. Patty's face darkened. She'd never liked Jason much, but had kept her opinions to herself out of respect for our friendship. Then he's not your family either, she said simply. And it's time you stopped pretending. He is. I spent that night on Patty's couch, staring at the shadows on her ceiling, replaying every moment of my relationship with Jason, every compromise, every sacrifice, every time I'd let something slide because I thought that's what you did for family. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I hadn't just lost my honeymoon fund. I had lost the illusion that I'd ever been part of the Turner family at all. And somehow that clarity hurt worse than the betrayal itself. The next 3 days passed in a blur of unanswered calls from Jason and sleepless nights on Patty's couch. On the 4th day, I returned to our apartment during his work hours to collect some clothes and essentials. I half expected to find the locks changed, some final insult to drive home my outsider status, but my key still worked. The apartment felt different, smaller somehow, claustrophobic. Pictures I had once found comforting now seemed like evidence of a life built on illusions. There we were on our wedding day, Jason's arm around my waist, Barbara standing just slightly apart, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Another of us at Thanksgiving, me carefully positioned on the edge of the family photo, as if someone had reluctantly included me at the last minute. How had I not seen it? I was packing a suitcase when my phone rang. Barbara's name flashed on the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something, curiosity perhaps, or a masochistic desire to hear how they'd justify what they'd done, made me answer. Hello, Barbara. Lauren. Her voice was crisp, businesslike. Jason tells me, you're upset about our little family vacation. Little family vacation. $22,000 of my money. My honeymoon. Is that what he told you? I kept my voice neutral, refusing to give her the satisfaction of hearing me upset. Now I understand you might feel left out, but really, dear, you must see that Jason needed time with his real family. With everything Frank's been going through. What exactly has Frank been going through, Barbara? I interrupted. Because Jason mentioned his health but didn't specify. A pause. Well, his blood pressure has been concerning. High blood pressure. They'd stolen my honeymoon fund over high blood pressure, a condition managed by millions with diet and medication. I see, I said. Besides, Barbara continued, it was important for Stephanie too. After her breakup, the breakup from David, the same David she's been posting pictures with for the past month, that breakup. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost see Barbara's face, the tightening around her mouth that appeared whenever she was caught in a lie. Lauren, Her voice dropped to that saccharine tone she used when trying to put me in my place. "I understand you're upset, but really this is a Turner family matter and—" "I'm a Turner," I said quietly. Barbara's laugh was like ice water down my spine. "Well, by name perhaps, but we both know it's not quite the same, don't we? Blood is thicker than water, dear." I closed my eyes, willing myself not to cry, not now, not with her listening. "Goodbye, Barbara," I said, and ended the call before she could respond. I sat on the edge of our bed, Jason's bed now, I supposed, and let the tears come. Not for the money, though that loss stung sharply enough, not even for the honeymoon I'd never have, but for the years I'd spent trying to earn a place in a family that had never intended to make room for me. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Mom said you hung up on her. Not cool, Lauren. She was trying to help." Help. The word almost made me laugh through my tears. The Turners' version of help had always been thinly veiled criticism wrapped in condescension. I ignored the text and finished packing. As I zipped my suitcase, my eyes caught on the framed photo on his nightstand. It was from the day Jason had proposed at Cannon Beach, one of the few pictures where I looked genuinely happy, blissfully unaware of what lay ahead. On impulse, I took it from the frame, not to keep but to look at one last time. Behind it was another photo I hadn't seen before, Jason with a woman I didn't recognize, her arm draped casually around his shoulders. They were at a bar I didn't recognize, both grinning widely. The date stamp on the back read March 12th, just 2 months ago, when Jason had claimed to be at a work retreat in Seattle. My hands trembled as I replaced both photos in the frame, setting it face down on the nightstand, one betrayal flowing seamlessly into another. How many more would I discover if I started looking? I didn't want to know. Not now. Maybe not ever. I left the apartment with my suitcase and a strange sense of lightness, as if I'd set down a heavy burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The weight of trying to be good enough for the Turners, the exhaustion of pretending not to notice their subtle rejections, the constant effort of making myself smaller to fit into the tiny space they'd allotted me in their lives. Back at Patty's that evening, I found her setting the table for dinner with our mutual friend, Michael. "I invited reinforcements," she explained, nodding, toward Michael, who was uncorking a bottle of wine. "I figured you could use all the friends you can get right now." Friends. The word warmed me in a way family never had with the Turners. These people who chose to be in my life, who supported me without conditions or expectations. Over pasta and too much wine, I told Michael everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "You know what the worst part is?" I said, swirling the last of my wine. "I actually believed I could earn their acceptance. Like if I just tried hard enough, was perfect enough, they'd eventually see me as one of them." "That's not on you," Michael said firmly. "That's on them, and on Jason, for letting them treat you that way." "He didn't just let them," I corrected him. "He joined them." The truth of it settled heavy in my chest. Jason hadn't been an innocent bystander to his family's rejection of me. He'd been a willing participant, perhaps even the ringleader. "So what now?" Patty asked, refilling my glass. I looked at these two people who had dropped everything to be here for me, who had never made me feel like I needed to earn my place in their lives, and felt something shift inside me, a decision crystallizing. "Now," I said, raising my glass, "I stop trying to be part of a family that never wanted me, and I start remembering the family I already have." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in days, I felt something close to peace. That night, as I lay on Patty's couch staring at the ceiling, my phone lit up with another text from Jason. "Please, come home. We need to talk about this like adults." I typed a reply, deleted it, typed another. Finally, I settled on the truth. I am home, with people who actually treat me like family. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes, letting sleep claim me at last. 2 weeks later, I was settling into my temporary new life. Patty had insisted I stay as long as I needed, and I'd accepted her generosity with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. I'd started looking for a studio apartment, somewhere to rebuild from scratch, somewhere without memories. Jason had continued his campaign of texts and calls, alternating between apologies and accusations. I'd stopped responding after the first week, each message only confirming what I already knew. He didn't understand what he'd done wrong. Or, worse, he did understand, but thought I should simply get over it. I was at work editing copy for a marketing campaign when my desk phone rang. My stomach knotted. Only a few people had this number. Lauren Hayes speaking. Lauren. Frank's voice, gravelly and uncertain. In 2 years of marriage, I could count on one hand the number of times my father-in-law had called me directly. I hope I'm not disturbing you at work. Not at all, Frank. I kept my tone professional, detached. What can I do for you? A pause, then. Barbara suggested I call to smooth things over. Of course she had. Barbara Turner, master puppeteer, pulling strings from behind the scenes, never directly involved in the mess she created. I appreciate the call, but there's nothing to smooth over. Jason made his choice, you all did. Now, Lauren. Frank's voice took on that patronizing tone the Turner men seem to inherit by blood. I understand you're upset about the vacation, but family needs to stick together during difficult times. There it was again. Family. The word they wielded like a weapon, designed to include or exclude at their convenience. Which difficult times are those, Frank? Your high blood pressure, Stephanie's convenient breakup, or perhaps Jason's secret Seattle weekend with another woman. Silence. Then, in a lower voice, I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. The words came out calm, certain. I think you all know exactly what you've been doing, making me feel like an outsider, taking what was mine, covering for Jason when he... That's enough. Frank's voice hardened. I called to offer an olive branch, not to listen to accusations against my son. Your son stole $22,000 from me. Money I saved. Money we had agreed was for our honeymoon. Another pause. When Frank spoke again, his voice was colder. Jason said you'd agreed to help with the family trip, that you knew how important it was for us to have time together, with his father's health. Concerns? I almost laughed. Is that what he told you, that I happily handed over my savings so you could all go to Hawaii without me? Well, he said you understood. I understood nothing, Frank. I found out from Stephanie's Instagram posts, after you were already there. The line went quiet, save for Frank's breathing. I waited, wondering if there was a part of him, some small, decent part, that might recognize the wrongness of what they'd done, that might offer a genuine apology. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, he said finally. Perhaps if you spoke with Jason directly. I've spoken with Jason plenty, and Barbara, and now you. The message is consistent. I'm not family, I never was. My voice caught, but I pushed through. So be it. Goodbye, Frank. I hung up. Before he could respond, my hands trembling slightly. Standing up from my desk, I walked calmly to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and pressed my forehead against the cool metal door. No tears came. Perhaps I'd finally run out. When I returned to my desk, there was an email from Jason. The subject line read simply, "Please." I should have deleted it, but some masochistic curiosity made me click. Lauren, I don't know how things got so messed up. Dad just called, upset. Said you accused me of cheating. That's crazy, babe. You know I would never. Look, I admit I should have been more upfront about the Hawaii trip, but my family really needed it, and I knew you'd say no if I asked. You never understood how important they are to me. I miss you. The apartment feels empty. Please come. Home so we can work this out. Jay. I read it twice, noting the careful misdirection, not denying the Seattle trip, just the cheating accusation, which I hadn't actually made to Frank, not apologizing for taking my money, just for not being upfront about it, and, most tellingly, still separating my family from me. I deleted the email without responding and threw myself back into work. Later that afternoon, my boss Margaret stopped by my desk. You okay, Hayes? You've seemed distracted this week. I looked up at her. 50-something, divorced twice, with a no-nonsense attitude I'd always admired. Margaret had built her career from nothing after her first husband left her with 2 small children. She didn't suffer fools or excuse incompetence, not even from herself. I'm sorry if it's affecting my work, I said. Personal stuff. I'll get it together. She studied me for a moment, then sat on the edge of my desk. Your work is fine, but you look like hell. Divorce? The word hit me like a physical blow. Divorce. I hadn't let myself think that far ahead yet, but what other endpoint was there? Separation, I said finally. For now. She nodded, unsurprised. My first husband took our savings to buy a boat. Didn't ask, just did it. Said it was an investment in our future. Sailed off with his secretary a month later. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. What did you do? Sold his vintage car collection while he was gone. Bought myself a house. She shrugged. Not very mature looking back, but damn satisfying at the time. I don't think I could do that. Good. That's the difference between us, Hayes. You've got more class. She stood, straightening her blazer. Take tomorrow off. Paid. Get your head straight. I need you focused next week for the Chamberlain pitch. I couldn't. Not asking. She cut me off with a wave of her hand. Consider it an investment in my team. Unlike some people's investments, this one will actually pay off. After Margaret left, I sat staring at my computer screen, her words echoing in my mind. Investment in our future. Jason had said something similar when we'd first started saving for Hawaii. Our future. A phrase that now seemed as hollow as our family. That night, I did something I should have done 2 weeks ago. I checked our joint bank accounts. The honeymoon fund had indeed been emptied. $22,000 transferred to Jason's personal account just before their Hawaii trip. But there was more. Small transfers over the past 6 months, usually on Fridays. 200 here, 300 there. Money I hadn't noticed missing because I'd been so focused on building our savings. In total, another $4,800 gone. To where? To whom? I downloaded the statements, then removed my name from the joint accounts, transferring my remaining balance to my personal account. It wasn't much. Most of my money had gone into the now empty savings, but it was something. A start. As I closed my laptop, my phone lit up with a text from Stephanie. You're breaking his heart. Hope you're happy. I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me. The Turner family closing ranks as they always did, protecting their own, and I was not their own. I'm getting there, I typed back, then turned off my phone. The free Friday from Margaret turned into a full weekend of self-reflection. I used the time to make lists, practical things I needed to do to separate my life from Jason's, emotional milestones I needed to reach to heal. I called my mother in Arizona, not telling her everything, but enough that she understood. The marriage was in trouble. Do you want me to come up there? She asked, concern evident even through the distance. No, Mom. I'm okay. Really. And surprisingly, I meant it. I have good friends here. Friends aren't family, Lauren, she said, echoing Barbara's sentiment with entirely different intentions. Sometimes they're better, I replied, thinking of Patty and Michael, of Margaret's gruff kindness. Monday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I got to work early, diving into the Chamberlain pitch with renewed focus. Around noon, my desk phone rang again. Lauren Hayes. Lauren, Jason's voice, strained and unfamiliar. We need to talk. I glanced around the office, suddenly aware of how public this conversation might become. I'm at work, Jason. I know. I'm downstairs. My heart stuttered. Downstairs? In the lobby, please, just 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I should have said no. Should have told him to leave, to respect the boundaries I was trying to establish. But some part of me, the part that had loved him, that still wanted answers, made me agree. 5 minutes, there's a coffee shop next door. I'll meet you there. He was already at a corner table when I arrived, 2 coffees in front of him. He'd remembered how I took mine, oat milk, no sugar. The small gesture irritated me more than it should have. How dare he remember that detail while forgetting the larger promises he'd made? Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down, not quite meeting my eyes. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, hair unwashed. A visible manifestation of the chaos I felt inside. 5 minutes, I reminded him, leaving my coffee untouched. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. What I did, taking the money without discussing it was wrong. I waited, watching him struggle through what was clearly a rehearsed speech. But you have to understand, my family was going through a rough time. Dad's health scare. Stephanie's breakup. Please stop. I cut him off, suddenly exhausted by the same excuses. Your father has high blood pressure, not terminal cancer. Stephanie and David were posting couple photos again 3 days after your family vacation. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. Jason's face hardened. Why are you being like this? I'm trying to apologize. No, you're trying to justify. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Fine. I took the money. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry, but you're acting like this one mistake erases everything we've built together. It wasn't one mistake, Jason. It was a pattern I finally recognized. I leaned forward, keeping my voice low despite the anger building inside me. 2 years of your family, treating me like an outsider. 2 years of you letting them, joining them. The money was just the final proof of what I'd been trying not to see. That's not fair. My family has always, your family has always made it clear I don't belong. And you've always let them. The words spilled out unstoppable now. Every dismissive comment from your mother. Every time Stephanie forgot to include me. Every holiday where I was treated like an inconvenient guest rather than your wife. And you never once stood up for me. Jason's expression shifted, defensiveness giving way to something darker. Because you were always too sensitive, always looking for insults where there were none. Do you know how exhausting it is constantly walking on eggshells around you? The accusation landed like a slap. Exhausting? Try having your mother-in-law accidentally call you by the wrong name at your own wedding. Try having your sister-in-law borrow your clothes without asking and return them stained. Try having your father-in-law pretend you're invisible at family gatherings. My voice shook with suppressed rage. Try saving for 3 years for a dream honeymoon, only to discover your husband stole the money for his real family. Jason flinched at the word real, but his eyes remained hard. You're twisting everything, making yourself the victim, as usual. Am I? Then explain the Seattle trip in March. The one where you were supposedly at a work retreat, but were actually at a bar with a woman I've never met. His eyes widened slightly, a tell I recognized from our rare poker nights. With friends. What are you talking about? I found the photo, Jason, behind our engagement picture. You and a blonde woman at a bar in Seattle, dated March 12th. He looked away, and in that moment of averted eyes, I saw the truth. Who is she? I asked quietly. It's not what you think. The cliché almost made me laugh. She's just a friend, from college. We reconnected on Facebook, and since I was in Seattle anyway. So you lied about the work retreat, then met up with an old friend you didn't bother to mention, and kept the photo hidden. I nodded slowly. Sounds completely innocent. Jason's jaw tightened. You know what? This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Because you jumped to the worst possible conclusion about everything. And the money, Jason? The $4,800 you've been gradually taking from our joint account over the past 6 months. What conclusion should I jump to about that? His face paled. He hadn't expected me to have found that. I had some debts from before we were married. I was going to pay it back. With what? The money you'd already stolen from me. It wasn't stealing. His voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. We're married. What's yours is mine. The words hung in the air between us, revealing everything. What's yours is mine, not ours. Mine. But what's yours is your family's, I finished for him, standing up. Well, now you can explain to them why your rent is going to be late, because what was mine is now mine again. I walked out, leaving him and the untouched coffee behind. My 5 minutes were up. A week after my coffee shop confrontation with Jason, I signed a lease on a small studio apartment in southeast Portland. It was nothing like the spacious 2-bedroom we'd shared, just a single room with a kitchenette and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But it was mine. Every square foot of it. Patty helped me move in, bringing housewarming gifts, a set of mismatched mugs, fairy lights for the windows, and a bottle of champagne. To new beginnings, she said as we sat cross-legged on my newly delivered futon, drinking from the mugs because I didn't own proper glasses yet. To freedom, I countered, clinking my coffee mug against hers. Freedom came with a price tag, I was discovering, rent that stretched my budget thin, furniture purchased second-hand or from discount stores, a steadily growing credit, card balance that made me wince each time I checked it. The financial reality of starting over at 30 was daunting, especially after losing my savings, but each night, as I curled up alone in my new space, I felt a peace that no amount of financial security could have bought me. No passive-aggressive comments from Barbara over dinner, no tense silences when I expressed an opinion that didn't align with the Turner family values. No Jason, watching me with those increasingly distant eyes as if trying to figure out how he'd ended up with someone so clearly unsuitable. I was making it work, one day at a time, until the day Jason showed up at my office again. This time he didn't call ahead. I was walking out of the building at the end of the day when I saw him leaning against his car in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, looking more put together than he had at the coffee shop. The sight of him sent a jolt through me, part muscle memory of affection, part fresh wave of anger. "Lauren," he called, straightening as I approached. "Please, just hear me out." I should have kept walking, should have ignored him completely, but some combination of curiosity and residual politeness made me stop, maintaining a safe distance between us. "What do you want, Jason?" He looked different somehow. Cleaner, yes, but also determined, focused in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. "I've been an ass," he said simply, "about everything. The money, the trip, my family. You were right, they never gave you a chance. And I let them. Worse, I joined them." I stood silent, waiting for the other shoe to drop. This uncharacteristic self-awareness felt like a setup. "I've been seeing a therapist," he continued. "Just 3 sessions so far, but it's helping me see things more clearly. How I've been repeating patterns from my childhood, always seeking my mother's approval even at the cost of my marriage." "That's good for you," I said cautiously. "I hope it helps." "It already has." He took a step toward me, stopping when I instinctively backed away. "I told them, Lauren. I told my parents and Stephanie that what we did was wrong, that they need to apologize to you, that I need to make things right." Something cold and hard formed in my stomach. "Make things right how?" "I want to try again. Us, I mean." His eyes, those familiar hazel eyes that had once made my heart skip, were pleading now. "I've cut them off until they can treat you with respect. I've gotten a second job to pay back the money I took, all of it." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this seemingly transformed man with the one who had so casually dismissed me as not family just weeks ago. "Why now, Jason?" "Because you're lonely. Because rent is due and your family got tired of covering." "For you?" His face fell. "That's not fair, isn't it? Because it seems like an awfully convenient time to have this epiphany, right when you're feeling the consequences of your actions. It's not like that, I swear." He stepped closer, and this time I held my ground. "I've missed you every day. The apartment is so empty without you. Without your laugh, your stupid lavender candles, the way you sing in the shower when you think I can't hear." The words hit a tender spot I thought had calloused over. He'd noticed those little things about me. The same man who hadn't noticed how much saving for Hawaii had meant to me. "Jason," I began, not sure what I was going to say. "I know I don't deserve another chance," he interrupted. "But I'm asking for one anyway. Let me prove to you that I've changed, that I understand what I did wrong." For a moment, just a brief, dangerous moment, I imagined it, going back to our apartment, trying again with this supposedly changed man, having a partner to share expenses with, to build a future with, the financial breathing room it would give me, the comfort of the familiar. Then I remembered Barbara's voice on the phone. "Blood is thicker than water, dear." The photos of Jason with the mysterious blonde, the years of subtle humiliations. "No," I said finally, the word surprisingly easy to speak. "I'm glad you're getting help, Jason. I truly am. But whatever we had, it's over." His face hardened, the transformation so quick it confirmed everything I'd feared. This wasn't about growth or change. It was about getting what he wanted, as always. "So that's it. After everything we've been through, you're just walking away." "You walked away first," I reminded him quietly. "When you chose your family over me. When you stole my money. When you lied. I'm just finally accepting what you've been showing me all along." "Fine," he snapped, the facade of contrition crumbling completely. "But don't come crying to me when you realize how hard it is. It's out there on your own. You think your little marketing job is going to cover that new apartment and all your bills. You need me, Lauren. You always have." The truth of his words stung, but not in the way he intended. Yes, finances would be tight. Yes, starting over was hard. But need him? No. I'd never truly needed Jason. I'd wanted him. I'd loved him. But I'd never needed him to survive. "Goodbye, Jason," I said, walking past him toward my car. "This isn't over," he called after me, his voice carrying across the parking lot. But it was. In that moment, watching him in my rearview mirror as I drove away, I knew with absolute certainty that it was over. That night I received a text from an unknown number. "Jason told us what he did. We're so sorry. Please call us. We want to make it right. Barbara Turner." I blocked the number without responding. Whatever game they were playing now, I wanted no part of it. The next morning at work, I found a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note in Jason's handwriting. "First installment. I'll pay back every penny whether you take me back or not." I should have been relieved. The money would help immensely with my growing credit card debt, but something about it felt wrong. Like accepting it would keep me tethered to Jason, to the Turners, to the past I was trying to leave behind. I tucked the check into my desk drawer, deciding to think about it later. For now, I had work to focus on, a life to rebuild. That evening, as I was leaving, Margaret stopped me. "Hayes, got a minute?" She beckoned me into her office, closing the door behind us. "If this is about the Chamberlain pitch, I've made the revisions you suggested. It's not about Chamberlain." She sat on the edge of her desk, fixing me with that direct stare that always made me feel like she could see right through me. "It's about you." My stomach dropped. "My work is excellent, as always," she finished for me. "This is about the opportunity that's opened up. Senior copywriter position, significant bump in pay, more creative control." I stared at her, processing her words slowly. "You're offering me a promotion." "Not offering, recommending. The final decision is Johnson's, but he listens to me." She smiled slightly. "Usually." I don't know what to say. "Say you'll take it if it's offered. Say you're ready for more. Responsibility." She studied me carefully. "You are ready, aren't you? Personal situation aside. The promotion would mean longer hours, more stress, but also, crucially, more money. Financial stability I desperately needed right now." "I'm ready," I said, surprising myself with the confidence in my voice. "My personal situation won't be an issue." Margaret nodded, satisfied. "Good, because I need someone I can count on, someone who doesn't break under pressure." She paused. "Someone who knows their own worth." As I left her office, those last words echoed in my mind. My own worth. Something the Turners had tried so hard to diminish, something I was slowly reclaiming, one decision at a time. That night I took Jason's check from my bag and stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it into tiny pieces and flushed them down the toilet. I would rebuild on my own terms. Without their money, without their false apologies, without the strings they would inevitably attach. The promotion wasn't guaranteed. The financial pressure wasn't gone. But for the first time since finding those Hawaii photos, I felt truly hopeful about the future. My future. One that I would create for myself. 3. Months passed in a blur of work, financial juggling and slow healing. I threw myself into the senior copywriter role, which Johnson had indeed offered me after Margaret's recommendation. The increased salary helped ease my financial strain, though I was still far from comfortable. Jason continued sending monthly checks. I continued destroying them without cashing them. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about disentangling myself completely from the web the Turners had woven around me. Barbara had tried reaching out twice more, once through a handwritten letter delivered to my office. How she'd gotten the address, I didn't want to know, and once through an elaborate flower arrangement on my birthday. Both attempts went unanswered. My new life was taking shape. Smaller than before, simpler, but undeniably mine. I decorated my studio with second-hand finds and bargain treasures, transforming the blank space into something that felt like home. I joined a hiking group that met on weekends, discovering parts of Oregon I'd never explored despite living here for years, and I'd started saving again. Not for a honeymoon this time, but for a future that was still coming into focus. A small amount from each paycheck, building slowly but steadily. It was a Wednesday evening in late September when everything shifted again. I was working late, finalizing a campaign for a new client, when my office phone rang. Few people called that line after hours, and my stomach knotted with the same instinctive dread I'd felt months ago when Frank had called. Lauren Hayes speaking. "Lauren." Stephanie's voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Please don't hang up." I should have, but something in her tone, a vulnerability I'd never heard from the confident, entitled younger Turner sibling, made me pause. "What do you want, Stephanie?" A breath shaky and uncertain. "It's Jason, he's in the hospital." My heart stuttered. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the months of separation, those words still had the power to shake me. "What happened?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Car accident. Last night. He's going to be okay, but it was bad. Broken ribs, concussion, some internal bleeding they had to operate on." I closed my eyes, trying to process the information. through the sudden rush of conflicting emotions. Relief that he would survive, anger that I still cared, guilt that I felt both. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said finally, professional mask slipping into place. "But I'm not sure why you're calling me. We've been separated for months." "Because he asked for you." Stephanie's voice cracked slightly. "When he woke up after surgery, your name was the first thing he said. The admission hung in the air between us. I said nothing. Couldn't find the words. Look," Stephanie continued, "I know we've been horrible to you. All of us. Jason worst of all. What we did, taking your money, excluding you, it was cruel, and I'm sorry. Truly sorry." "Stephanie, no, please let me finish." She took another shaky breath. "After you left, things started falling apart. Mom got more controlling, Dad retreated even further. Jason started drinking too much. It was like without you there to target, we had to face all the dysfunction we'd been ignoring for years." I said nothing, unwilling to offer absolution so easily. "I'm not asking you to come back to him," Stephanie clarified quickly. "I know that ship has sailed. He's asking for you, and I thought you should know about the accident regardless." The silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken resentments and fresh, raw vulnerability. "Which hospital?" I asked finally. "Providence, Portland, room 412. The relief in her voice was palpable. "Thank you, Lauren. I'm not promising anything," I warned her. "I just need to think about it." After hanging up, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at nothing. The rational part of me argued against going. What could it possibly achieve except reopening wounds that had barely begun to heal? But another part, the part that had once loved Jason, the part that still cared about his well-being despite everything, couldn't simply ignore his condition. I left work and drove home, the debate continuing in my mind. By the time I reached my apartment, I'd made a decision. I would go, not for Jason or the Turners, but for myself, for closure, for the chance to look at him one last time and know with certainty that whatever we'd had was truly over. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time since starting my new position. Then I drove to Providence, Portland, my hands steady on the steering wheel, even as my thoughts raced. The hospital smell hit me as soon as I entered. Antiseptic and illness mingled with the artificial scent of mass-produced food. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, my steps slowing as I approached room 412. Through the partially open door, I could see Jason lying in the bed, eyes closed, face bruised and swollen. A monitor beeped steadily beside him. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. I stood in the doorway, unable to make myself step inside. As if sensing my presence, Jason's eyes fluttered open. For a moment he seemed confused, blinking at me as if I might be a hallucination. Then recognition dawned. "Lauren," he whispered, voice hoarse. "You came." I moved into the room, stopping a safe distance from his bed. "Stephanie called, said you were asking for me." He nodded slightly, wincing at the movement. "Didn't think you'd actually come." I almost didn't. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "But you did. Still the better person. Always were." I looked away, uncomfortable with both the compliment and the sight of him so broken. "What happened, Jason?" "Stupid accident. My fault. Wasn't paying attention at an intersection." He shifted slightly, grimacing in pain. "Could have been worse. Doctor says I'm lucky. I'm glad you're going to be okay," I said, and meant it. His eyes, the same hazel eyes I'd once found so charming, studied me intently. "You look good, Lauren. Different, somehow." "I am different." The truth of that statement resonated through me. I was different, stronger, clearer about who I was and what I deserved. "I've missed you," he said simply. "Every day." The words hung between us, an echo of what he'd said in the parking lot months ago. But this time there was no manipulation behind them, just tired honesty from a man in a hospital bed. "Why did you ask for me, Jason?" The question came out gentler than I'd intended. He looked away, staring at the ceiling. "When the car hit me, in those seconds before everything went black, yours was the only face I saw, not Mom's, not Dad's, yours." His voice cracked, and I realized something I should have known years ago. I waited, neither encouraging nor discouraging his confession. "You were always my real family," he said finally, meeting my eyes again. "The only one who ever truly cared about me, not what I could do for them. And I threw it away for people who never really saw me." either. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jason, the golden child, feeling as unseen in his birth family as I had felt in my married one. "I'm sorry," I said after a long moment, "that you didn't realize that sooner." "Me too." He reached for my hand, stopping when I subtly pulled back. "I don't expect you to forgive me or to come back. I just needed to see you, to tell you I know what I lost, what I threw away." I stood there looking at this broken version of the man I'd once pledged my life to, and felt an unexpected wave of compassion, not love, that had died a slow, painful death over the past months, but something softer, understanding, even a kind of peace. "I hope you heal quickly," I said finally, "and not just the physical injuries." Jason nodded, a tear slipping down his bruised cheek. "Thank you for coming, for everything." I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Goodbye, Jason." Walking out of that hospital room felt like shedding the final weight of my old life. Whatever power Jason and the Turners had held over me, over my self-worth, my sense of belonging, was gone. I was free, truly free, at last. Winter descended on Portland with a vengeance, bringing relentless rain and early darkness that seemed to stretch into infinity. I was thriving in my new role as senior copywriter, earning the respect of colleagues who had once viewed me as merely Jason Turner's wife. My small studio had become a true sanctuary, plants thriving on every windowsill, books stacked by my bed, the scent of lavender candles filling every corner. 6 months had passed since the hospital visit. 6 months since I'd last seen Jason's face or heard his voice. The divorce papers had been filed shortly after, a surprisingly straightforward process once Jason stopped fighting it. We had little to divide. The apartment lease was in his name, and after the Hawaii theft, our joint accounts were nearly empty. He'd agreed to my terms without argument, his signature on the final. Papers almost apologetic in its careful neatness. I was healing, growing, rebuilding. And then Barbara Turner walked into my office. I was working late, the floor nearly empty except for a few dedicated souls hunched over their computers. When I looked up to find Barbara standing in my doorway, elegant as always in her camel haircoat and pearls, I briefly wondered if I'd fallen asleep at my desk and was dreaming. "Lauren," she said, her voice carrying that familiar, crisp authority. "May I come in?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk, too surprised to refuse. She sat with her characteristic grace, placing her designer handbag carefully beside her. For a moment we simply regarded each other across the desk, me in my office attire that suddenly felt shabby in her presence, her immaculate and poised as always. "I won't take much of your time," she began, hands folded neatly in her lap. "I know you're busy with your career." The slight pause before career was pure Barbara, the subtle dig disguised as casual conversation. Some things never changed. "What do you want, Barbara?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. She shifted slightly, the first sign of discomfort I'd ever seen in her. "I've come to give you something." From her handbag, she withdrew an envelope and placed it on my desk. I made no move to take it. "If that's another check from Jason, you can save yourself the trouble. I've torn up everyone he's sent." Barbara's eyebrows rose slightly. "You've destroyed $35,000 in checks?" The amount startled me, far more than the $22,000 he'd taken for Hawaii, but I kept my expression neutral. "I don't want or need Turner money." A ghost of a smile touched Barbara's lips. "Admirable, but this isn't from Jason." She nudged the envelope closer. "It's from me." Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the envelope to find a cashier's check for $22,000, the exact amount of my stolen honeymoon fund. "I don't understand." Barbara sighed, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep and tired. "It was never Jason's idea, you know. Hawaii." She looked away, out the darkened window where rain streaked the glass. "It was mine." I sat very still, absorbing her words. "You suggested he take my money." "Not in those exact terms, but yes, essentially." Her eyes returned to mine, unflinching. "Frank's health was declining, more seriously than we let on. I wanted one last family vacation, somewhere special. And my honeymoon fund was convenient," I finished for her. "Jason mentioned how much you'd saved, how careful you'd been." A flicker of something, regret perhaps, crossed her face. "I suggested he could borrow it, just temporarily. We would help him pay it back before you even noticed. But then I found out." She nodded. "You found out, and Everything fell apart. Barbara straightened her already perfect posture. "I've come to make amends, Lauren. Not just financially, but personally." I stared at her, searching for the manipulation, the hidden agenda. "Why now? It's been over a year since Hawaii. 6 months since the divorce was finalized. Because of what happened at Thanksgiving." Barbara folded her hands again, knuckles white, with tension. "Jason brought someone to dinner, a woman he's been seeing. I felt a strange emptiness where jealousy should have been. I'm happy for him." "Really? Are you?" Barbara studied me carefully. "Because I'm not. She's all wrong for him. Giggles too much. Has ridiculous opinions about politics, wears too much perfume." Despite everything, I found myself smiling. "Sounds like you're describing me a year ago." Barbara surprised me with a small, genuine laugh. "No, you were never that bad." Her expression sobered. "In fact, you were good for him. Better than he deserved. Certainly better than we treated you." The admission hung in the air between us, startling in its honesty. "During dinner," Barbara continued, "she said something about Hawaii, about how Jason had promised to take her there someday, and he just agreed, as if Hawaii hadn't cost him his marriage, as if it meant nothing." I swallowed hard, an unexpected lump forming in my throat. "That's who he is, Barbara. It's who he's always been." She nodded slowly. "I know. I made him that way." Her eyes, so like Jason's, met mine without flinching. "I taught him that family means getting what you want, that blood entitles you to special treatment, that wives are temporary but mothers are forever." The brutal honesty of her self-assessment left me speechless. "I destroyed your marriage as surely as if I'd filed the divorce papers myself," she continued. "And for that, I am truly sorry, Lauren." I looked down at the check, then back at the woman who had made me feel inadequate from the moment we'd met. "I appreciate the gesture, Barbara, but money can't fix what happened." "I know that." She reached across the desk, hesitating before lightly touching my hand. "But it's a start. The money was yours. It should have remained yours." I nodded, still processing the surreal nature of this encounter. Barbara Turner apologizing. Barbara Turner taking responsibility. Barbara Turner showing genuine remorse. "There's more," she said, withdrawing her hand. "Jason doesn't know I'm here, none of them do, but I've been seeing someone. A therapist." The word seemed to pain her physically. "After the accident, after seeing what my controlling nature had done to my family, I knew something needed to change." "I'm glad," I said, and meant it. "That's a brave step." Barbara's smile was tight, uncomfortable with the praise. "Hardly brave. Necessary, perhaps." She stood, smoothing her already immaculate coat. "I should go. I've taken enough of your time." I rose as well, oddly reluctant to see her leave. "Thank you for coming, Barbara. And for the check. I'll think about what to do with it." She nodded, then hesitated. "He misses you, you know. Not that he'll admit it. We're better. Apart," I said softly. "We both know that." "Yes." Her eyes, suddenly tired and old, met mine. "But I thought you should know that he regrets what happened. Every day." After she left, I sat staring at the check for a long time. $22,000. My honeymoon fund returned. Too late for the trip it was intended for, but perhaps perfect timing for whatever came next. I tucked the check into my purse and finished my work, mind swirling with the implications of Barbara's visit. The apology, while unexpected, didn't erase the pain of what had happened, but it offered something I hadn't realized I needed: acknowledgement, validation that I hadn't imagined or exaggerated the mistreatment, that I had in fact been wronged. That night, I called my mother in Arizona. We hadn't spoken much since my divorce. Our relationship had always been complicated by distance and her remarriage, but suddenly I needed to hear her voice. "Lauren?" She answered on the second ring, surprise evident in her tone. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Mom." I curled up on my window seat, watching rain streak down the glass. "I just wanted to talk." And for the first time in years, maybe decades, we really did talk. About my divorce, about her marriage to my stepfather, about the complicated dance of belonging and exclusion that had shaped both our lives, about forgiveness, not the easy kind that pretends hurt never happened, but the hard-won kind that acknowledges pain and chooses to move forward anyway. "I'm proud of you," she said finally, "for standing up for yourself, for knowing your worth." Those words, so simple and yet so powerful, settled into the spaces where doubt still lingered. Knowing my worth. Perhaps that had been the journey all along. Spring arrived in Portland with its characteristic explosion of color, cherry blossoms painting the city pink, daffodils nodding in every park, the relentless gray of winter finally giving way to hopeful blue skies. A year had passed since I'd discovered those Hawaii photos, a year of loss and growth, pain and healing. I was standing in line at my favorite coffee shop when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Lauren, is that you?" I turned to find Frank Turner, looking older and frailer than when I'd last seen him. His once imposing frame seemed diminished somehow, shoulders slightly stooped, face lined with new wrinkles. "Frank," I said, genuine surprise coloring my voice. "How are you?" He smiled, a real smile, not the tight, controlled expression I remembered from family gatherings. "Better now. Much better. Those new blood pressure medications are working wonders." An awkward silence fell between us as the line inched forward. I noticed he held a cane, something I couldn't imagine the proud Frank Turner of a year ago ever using. "Barbara mentioned she'd seen you," he said finally. "Said you were doing well. The new job and all." I nodded, unsure how to navigate this unexpected reunion. "Yes, senior copywriter now. It's challenging, but I love it." "Good. That's good." He shifted his weight, seeming uncomfortable. "Listen, would you have time for a cup of coffee? Just a few minutes. There's something I'd like to say." Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect the peace I'd so carefully constructed, but another part, the stronger part now, knew that growth sometimes meant facing the past rather than avoiding it. "Sure," I agreed. "I have some time." We ordered and found a small table by the window. Frank's hands trembled slightly as he added cream to his coffee, another sign of vulnerability I'd never seen in him before. "Barbara told me she apologized," he began, stirring his coffee with unusual focus, "for her part in what happened, with Hawaii and everything else." I nodded, waiting. "What she didn't tell you, what she might not even know herself, is that I was against it from the start." He looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "Taking your money, excluding you from the trip. All of it." The admission surprised me. Frank had always been the silent partner in the Turner family dynamics, rarely expressing opinions that contradicted Barbara's. "You never said anything," I pointed out, keeping my voice gentle. "No." He looked down again, shame evident in his posture. "I didn't. And that makes me just as guilty, doesn't it? Standing by while someone is mistreated. It's no better than doing the mistreating yourself." I thought of all the times Frank had remained silent during Barbara's subtle put-downs, during Stephanie's thoughtless exclusions, during Jason's failures to defend me. How his silence had felt like tacit approval. "Why tell me this now?" I asked. Frank sighed heavily. "Because the heart attack changed things, made me see what matters." "Heart attack?" The news startled me. Barbara only mentioned high blood pressure. "That's all it was back when, well, before Hawaii. But 6 months ago I had a major heart attack. Nearly died." He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "Makes a man think about his regrets." I reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "I'm sorry, Frank. I didn't know." "No reason you should." He attempted a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, but it made me realize how much time I'd wasted, being afraid to stand up to Barbara, being afraid to show weakness, being afraid to admit when I was wrong. He looked at me directly. "I was wrong about you, Lauren, we all were." The admission, so simple and yet so profound, washed over me like a wave. All those years of feeling inadequate, of trying to prove myself worthy of the Turner name, and now this acknowledgement that the failure had been theirs, not mine. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. Frank nodded, seeming relieved to have delivered his message. "Jason doesn't know I'm seeing you today. None of them do except Barbara, but I wanted to tell you myself, to apologize in person. I appreciate that, and to give you this." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "It belonged to my mother. I always intended it for Jason's wife. For you. I should have given it to you years ago." I opened the box to find a delicate gold bracelet, vintage and clearly valuable. "Frank, I can't accept this, please." His voice was firm for the first time in our conversation. "It should be yours. Consider it a small reparation for what we took from you, not just the money, but the sense of belonging, of being family." I closed the box, overwhelmed by the gesture. "I'll think about it." He seemed satisfied with that. We finished our coffee in a silence that was, if not comfortable, at least not strained. As we prepared to leave, Frank hesitated. "One more thing," he said. "Jason is engaged again." The news hit with surprising gentleness, a fact rather than a blow. "To the woman from Thanksgiving?" Frank nodded. "Rebecca. She's fine. Different from you. Not better, just different." He paused. "The wedding is in September." "I wish them happiness," I said, and meant it. Whatever Jason and I had shared was firmly in the past now, a closed chapter in both our stories. "You deserved better than him," Frank said unexpectedly. "Than all of us." With that, he squeezed my hand once and walked away, his cane tapping a gentle rhythm on the coffee shop floor. I watched him go, this diminished version of the man who had once intimidated me so thoroughly, and felt the last pieces of resentment dissolve. Not forgetting, but forgiving. Not for their sake, but for my own. That evening I sat on my small balcony, watching the sunset paint the Portland skyline in shades of gold and pink. The velvet box sat open beside me, the bracelet catching the fading light. I hadn't decided whether to keep it yet, but I appreciated what it represented. Acknowledgement, regret, a desire to make amends. Barbara's check had been deposited, the money allocated partly to paying off the remaining debt I'd accumulated during the divorce, partly to a new savings account labeled Future. Not a honeymoon fund this time, but something more open-ended. A fund for possibilities, for whatever dreams might take shape in this new life I was building. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Chamberlain loved the campaign. They've signed for another year. Drinks tomorrow. To celebrate. You in?" I smiled, typing back a quick affirmative. Another buzz, Michael this time, asking if I wanted to join the hiking group for a weekend trip to Mount Hood. Then Patty, sending a picture of a vintage bookshelf she'd spotted at a thrift store. "Perfect for your place?" Looking at these messages, at the connections I'd strengthened and built over the past year, I realized something profound. I had found my family after all. Not through marriage or blood, but through genuine bonds of respect, support, and mutual care. I slipped the gold bracelet onto my wrist, testing its weight. It was beautiful. A piece of history, but it represented a past that was no longer mine. With careful deliberation, I placed it back in its velvet box and set it aside. Tomorrow, I would mail it back to Frank with a note of thanks but no regrets. My phone rang, my mother calling for our now weekly chat. Another relationship healing, strengthening. "Hey, Mom," I answered, smiling into the twilight. "Lauren," her voice warm across the miles. "I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling about the trip next month? Still on board?" The trip, a week in Arizona, just the two of us. A chance to rebuild what had been broken long before I'd met Jason. Another kind of healing. "Absolutely," I confirmed. "I'm looking forward to it." As we talked, the last light faded from the sky, stars appearing one by one above the city. I thought about Barbara's visit, Frank's apology, the life Jason was building without me. I thought about the money returned, the bracelet offered, the acknowledgements made. And I thought about my own journey, from desperate need for acceptance to quiet confidence in my own worth. The Hawaii honeymoon would never happen. Not with Jason, not with anyone, but something better had emerged from its ashes, a life shaped by my own choices, filled with people who valued me for exactly who I was. Family. I had finally found it, not by marrying into someone else's, but by creating my own, not by blood or legal bonds, but by the currency of truth, respect, and genuine connection. And in the end, that was worth more than any trip to Hawaii could ever have been.